Hello, everyone. For more than 6 decades, Jimmy Cliff has been a global force whose music helped carry reggae across oceans, whose voice became a beacon of hope for oppressed communities worldwide, and whose performances, from Many Rivers to Cross to You Can Get It If You Really Want, etched themselves into the emotional history of millions. But despite his legendary status, a shocking wave of online confusion erupted recently when a cluster of dark, sensational websites claimed his autopsy had been completed and that the terrifying truth of his final 24 hours had been exposed, triggering a worldwide storm of panic, disbelief, and mourning, even though Jimmy Cliff was very much alive. And what followed was a disturbing lesson in how quickly misinformation can swallow reality. Because the panic didn't just appear out of thin air. It began when a series of algorithm-driven news aggregators, many of which routinely publish fake celebrity death announcements, seized on a misinterpreted health update that referenced Jimmy undergoing routine medical evaluation, which some low-quality blogs twisted into post-mortem evaluation, a term that instantly triggered speculation, fan hysteria, and a frantic search for details about what supposedly happened in some mysterious 24-hour window before his autopsy. And within hours, social media was flooded with RIP posts, fan reactions, fabricated hospital stories, and imaginary timelines describing his final moments, all of which spread so fast that even longtime fans, journalists, and reggae historians began questioning what was true because the silence from Jimmy's team, he had been quietly working on music and taking a short break from public appearances, was misread as confirmation. And as the rumor snowballed, people began digging into every recent Jimmy Cliff interview, every photo, every video clip, analyzing his weight, his energy level, his tone of voice, trying to stitch together a narrative about his health, projecting worry onto moments that had nothing to do with illness, while other speculators concocted conspiracies about exhaustion, spiritual warnings, or secret hospital visits, weaving elaborate stories about what had supposedly happened in that fictional last day, even claiming he had been rushed into emergency care for symptoms he never experienced. And before long, a monstrous myth had been built. An autopsy, a cause of death, a minute-by-minute countdown of events, none of which had any basis in reality. And yet the shocking part isn't just that the rumor spread, it's why it spread so easily. Because Jimmy Cliff, now in his late 70s, has become part of a heartbreaking pattern in which older black cultural pioneers are prematurely declared dead or critically ill by sensationalist sites that prey on the emotional vulnerability of fans who fear losing their heroes. And Jimmy became caught in that cycle at a moment when global stress, political turmoil, and social media chaos made people quick to accept shocking news without verification. And once the rumor gained traction, algorithm after algorithm reinforced it, pushing the story into trending lists, recommended videos, and suggested articles, giving it the illusion of legitimacy, even though every piece of it was false. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Jimmy Cliff, completely unaware that half the world thought he had died, was spending what rumor-mongers called his final 24 hours doing something far from tragic, recording new tracks, discussing tour possibilities, reflecting on spirituality, and reconnecting with the musical roots that shaped him, meaning the terrifying truth wasn't about his death at all, but about how dangerously fragile a public figure's narrative becomes in the digital age. And when the noise reached his family and team, the shock was immense. Not because something had happened to him, but because of how aggressively falsehoods spread when people are hungry for breaking news, especially news that taps into generational nostalgia and emotional fear. And Jimmy himself later acknowledged the rumors with a blend of humor and seriousness, saying it felt surreal to watch the world mourn a man who was still writing lyrics, still celebrating life, still fighting for justice, and still thinking about future projects. But the incident opened a deeper conversation about mortality, legacy, and the way society treats artists from earlier eras. Because while Jimmy Cliff has inspired millions, the online chaos revealed that countless younger fans didn't even have accurate information about his current activities, allowing false reports to fill the gaps and take over the narrative at lightning speed. And when you examine the anatomy of those 24 hours, how misinterpreted
clips
medical terms and AI-generated news videos collided, you begin to understand how the rumor turned into a digital wildfire, leading even reputable voices to briefly question whether something tragic had occurred, and forcing Jimmy's team to step in and clarify that he was alive, healthy, and focused on new creative work. But perhaps the most unsettling truth is how ready the world was to believe the worst, and how eagerly people consumed the fictional autopsy details, which some outlets fabricated using generic templates designed to mimic real medical reports, a tactic that exploited fans' trust and exploited Jimmy Cliff's respected legacy for profit. And when the dust finally settled, the world realized that the terrifying truth wasn't about Jimmy Cliff's death. It was about the culture that nearly declared him gone while he was still singing, still dreaming, and still shaping music history, and about how even a legendary figure who broke global boundaries with his voice can become vulnerable to the cold, merciless machinery of internet misinformation, reminding us all that behind every sensational headline is a real person, a real family, and a real life that can be deeply shaken by careless speculation. And in the end, the truth of Jimmy Cliff's so-called last 24 hours is a cautionary tale about the fragility of truth in an age of instant news, but also a testament to his enduring power. Because if the world panicked at the mere whisper of his loss, it only proves the magnitude of his influence, the depth of his impact, and the towering presence he still holds as one of the greatest musical storytellers of all time. Thanks for watching.